Stop. Watch till the end. There's the most crazy story in the end. If you like such Reddit stories, please subscribe to my channel. Thanks. I, 29F, thought my boyfriend, 25M, was my soulmate till he broke my trust. Is this considered cheating? Background: we met while I was in the process of my divorce. Before you judge, getting divorced in my country is not as simple and much more traumatic than in the West. When I left him, I made it clear this marriage is over and I want a divorce, but it took 6 months for my family to come around and finally do it. He was jealous of my career, a cheater, and let his family abuse me, so there was absolutely no going back there. My current BF and I met during the most traumatic time of my life. I had given up all hope of settling down and wasn't looking to date anyone again. But we just clicked. Everyone around us felt that. You know the feeling when you meet someone and you just know you should be together. That's what we felt for each other, and I had never felt that before. Needless to say, was a rock during my whole divorce situation and helped counsel and listen to me with the struggles I was going through. He had a traumatic past. He never talked much about it though. I had to drag it out of him because I wanted to help him get through it like he did for me. To sum it up, his ex was emotionally manipulative, and because they had sex, she guilted him a lot to marry her now because she is tainted. Sounds fucked up, right? He is one of those guys who are too nice for their own good, so he just fell into a deep depression and suffered through all of it and agreed to marry her. She was emotionally abusive, manipulative, and possessive, who would make a fuss if he had any life of his own. Played games, met with friends, etc., to the point he had to lie about his whereabouts. They finally broke up because he was too poor for her family, and they basically talked smack about him being a dirty peasant. Fast forward to now. We were now happily dating. My divorce had been finalized and we planned to move to Europe together, away from the fucked up place we grew up in. While we were planning our move, I caught him in a lie. Turns out, all this time I was going through my divorce. While he was consoling me and talking smack about his ex, he was actually in regular contact with her. Not as a girlfriend, but as a friend. His reason being that was deeply disturbed and suicidal, who has no friends and would have killed herself if he hadn't kept in touch with her. He talked to her just to get her through her day, and it was never sexual or romantic, and because he felt guilt and shame for ruining her life. Mind you, all this happened while we talked to 147 and were planning our lives together. It is hard to express in words how betrayed I felt. I felt disconnected, angry, given that I had just started recovering from my divorce with a husband who had cheated on me not 6 months into our marriage. This betrayal hurt even more because all this was from a guy who I thought was my soulmate, and I had never even felt that for my ex-husband. I went no contact with him for days. We worked in the same building, so it was hard. He made a lot of apologies and said he was in bad shape because he doesn't want to lose me, and everything with her ex was over since a month. I had just lost all trust in anything he had to say and asked to see the messages myself, which he shared with me with no reluctance. Most of the things he claimed were right. Their conversation was purely platonic and nothing more. What did hit a nerve was he never told her about me. She had her doubts that he was seeing me from mutuals and social media, but he flat out denied it. She was still trying to keep him bound to her, making suggestive comments like how she is still in love with him and she can't marry someone else because she can't leave him. He jumped at her disposal even at 3 a.m. at night if she needed his help with work, which does not seem like appropriate behavior for a friend. Another interesting thing to mention here is that even though he barely mentioned her, I was always uneasy with their supposed friendship, which he said he casually talks to her and he remained friendly with her. I am not the insecure type, so I was okay with it, and he assured me that she knew about us dating, which I later found out was total BS. So not only he went behind my back, but he also made me feel like the crazy one every time I hinted my concern. I started to question my intuitions, which have never been wrong in the past. Clearly, they were right again. I couldn't understand why he didn't come to me with this. I would have tried to find a way with him other than lying to his girlfriend, hiding his phone, and then claiming to be single to your ex. We broke up for a while and I decided to take some time to heal on my own, which I realized I never did after my divorce. Meanwhile, we both had gotten job offers from you and had already leased an apartment together. Even after everything, I wasn't able to shake what I felt for him and decided to try giving it another shot and having a fresh start together. We moved in together 6 months ago, and this is the happiest I have been in my life. We have an amazing relationship with a big butt looming over our heads. We never spoke about what happened since we moved here until last night. He broke down out of the blue and said he can't stop thinking about what he did and asked if I trust him and forgive him at all. I did not have the answers myself. How should I tell the person I love the most that I may never be able to trust him again? The big question is this considered as cheating? I am not sure if I should treat him as he did, and where do we go from here? Should we seek counseling or just try to push this aside hoping that time will heal? I don't want to lose him, but I would never be completely sure of his motives either. What if he is just staying with me out of guilt because that's what did with his ex to right? Is he capable of hurting me again? I am questioning everything. TLDR, my 29F, BF, 24M, was talking to his ex behind my back for months and lied to me. My husband, 28M, cheated on and abandoned me pregnant, 37F, and is trying to make me feel guilty for not facilitating video calls with our daughter, 9M. I found out my husband had been cheating on me last Valentine's Day when I was 6 months pregnant. He's in the Navy and was in training in Flow. I flew out to spend the week with him, and he was acting weird. I asked to see his phone and he tried to tell me it wasn't healthy, and that his therapist told him that we shouldn't do that. Well, I've never done that to him, but he had admitted to doing it to me and then tried to accuse me of cheating, even though he found absolutely no evidence that I ever cheated. He brought up an old text thread he saw from a guy that I'd met in a bar while out with GFs about 1 week after we made our relationship official, but we still weren't engaged or married. I was confused because I had no memory of this and had to dig back in my text to find what he was talking about. The text exchange was over and done in 1 day, and we never talked again. The content of the exchange consisted of talking about a podcast, my girlfriend's dating woes, and then I mentioned what an amazing boyfriend I had and was thankful not to be having the same problems as my friends. I never cheated on him or even came close. Anyway, fast forward a few months and here we are in the air and I'm asking for the phone. I tell him that he looked at mine behind my back, plus GPS tracking me without my knowledge for months before I found out, and I don't care what the therapist says, I deserve to know the truth. He hands me the phone and then tries to yank it back before I see anything. I take off and lock myself in the bathroom. I start seeing Insta messages, Snapchat messages to other women. He's trying to get in the bathroom the whole time. I'm not that strong and can't continue holding him back, so I put the phone in my pants and open the door. I tell him I don't have the phone and he can look for it in the bathroom. While he's looking, I take off running in the middle of the night in a neighborhood I don't know, 6 months pregnant and devastated. He was DMing over 20 different women, telling them how beautiful they were, etc. I found saved snaps where he exchanged addresses with some girl as well as sending her a video of himself and bunch of other pics of him shirtless post yoga bod for you, etc. Text attached. There was a thread with another girl on Snap of them taking photos together at a bar with a bunch of heart images over the pic. They weren't kissing or anything, and I didn't see sexual stuff or addresses exchanged here, but it still made me question if this was just another chick he was hooking up with while I was pregnant and alone trying to prepare for our daughter across the country. He drove back to his barracks to remotely wipe his phone while I was still finding more evidence of his infidelity. Obviously, I was devastated and upset, but he'd been pulling away for a while before this happened, so I'd had my suspicions up to that point, and I had already really been struggling emotionally dealing with that. Not to mention, I already have a PTSD diagnosis from long-term abuse, which I'm not getting into the details of. But as soon as we got married, he told me I had to give him details about the abuse I went through because I was his wife now. I joked that if that was the case, then we could get a divorce. Over some months, he wouldn't let this go and would interrogate me about details until he was screaming and I was crying. At this point, I was already in my 2nd trimester with my daughter, and I caved and gave him some details, hoping that would be the end of it. It was not. If any of you are familiar with CPTSD, forcing someone to disclose details against their will can set your recovery back a ton. So I started having nightmares again, migraines, intense anxiety, etc. One got so bad that I had to go there because I was throwing up and urinating on myself from the pain of the migraine. I don't have any family nearby or parents really, source of me PTSD, so I called the next person who I felt safe with to take me to the ER, and that happened to be my ex of 4 years. Husband knows about this friendship and was uncomfortable with it at first but seemed to get over it when I explained that our relationship was basically sexless and we parted amicably because I wanted kids and he'd had 3 already with tubes tied. He and his family kind of adopted me because of the situation with my family, plus I help him raise 2 teenagers. His oldest was in college out of state by this point. Fast forward again. My daughter is 9 months old. In a couple days our final divorce hearing is this Friday. He lost legal custody in the last hearing. He didn't show up but his lawyer did, and he got a liberal step-up plan for visitation. He's now stationed in court and I'm in custody, so it's going to be tough to exercise visitation. I went through periods of intense anger towards him, and I told him he couldn't see his daughter without a court order, although I took that back and invited him to visit for her Wednesday Christmas, so he hasn't been back to see her since she was born. I should also mention that he told me the Navy was requiring a paternity test for our daughter since we weren't going to be together anymore. He told me this less than 48 hours after I gave birth. I went into an emotional tailspin after he told me that the nurses almost wanted to keep me in postpartum recovery for an extra day. I sent an angry email regarding the matter to his chief and told husband to stay away from us until he got his paternity results. He kept messaging and telling me that he was in cut to visit her. He had taken paternity leave to visit her, and he was 99. I'm sure she was his, but he just wanted to be sure. I started feeling guilty because I know without a doubt that he's her father, so I let him visit. Things were going well until my daughter was 11 days old and he decided to go out partying with his friends in town because they wanted to celebrate him becoming a father. I wouldn't have known about it, but I tried to text him to say goodnight to baby since he was staying at a friend's and not with us at night, and he took about 3 hours to respond. I was pissed. I had already felt abandoned, not just me but also our daughter, and he had the audacity to go out partying to celebrate becoming a father when he wasn't even going to be there to help us. Anyway, I gave him a little hell for it, and he came back to visit a couple days later. Before he came, I told him no more showering at my place or taking care of personal hygiene. He was doing this before. If he's coming over, he's there to help and spend time with baby, and that's it. Well, he was giving me attitude and complaining when he came over, so I asked him why he thought everything would be honky-dory after what he put me through. The lies, the cheating, the verbal emotional abuse. He got defensive and started telling me my family told him I'd be an unfit mother. He kept repeating it when he saw how upset it made me with my daughter still on my chest from breastfeeding. I had a pelvic problem during the latter half of my pregnancy and was still having difficulty walking or getting up from a seated or laying position. My helplessness infuriated me even more. I told him to get out of my house. So after having to repeat several times and raise my voice, he left but also forgot his wallet, which I didn't realize at the time. I blocked him on my phone immediately after he left, so he had his friends call and text me about it, which also upset me further. I told them to fuck off, and if he came back to the house, I'd be calling the police on him. I didn't need the man that abandoned and cheated on me pregnant, causing me further stress with my newborn. I needed tranquility and peace. I figured I'd go drop his wallet off at the base later. He didn't need or deserve an explanation from me. So I went to my apt that day, which he knew about, and drove to drop it off at the base after. I get home and my roommate informs me that husband sent police to my house to pick up the wallet and claimed that I pretended to not be home. Later on that day, I got a call from CPS claiming general neglect of my newborn infant, less than 2 weeks old. CPS opens a case on me. I was again devastated. Nothing ended up happening, and a lawyer advised me not to allow them access to my home without a court order, but it was awful just to have to talk to them about this and to be accused of neglecting my baby that I dedicated every waking and barely sleeping moment to. Needless to say, I haven't been thrilled about the prospect of co-parenting with this guy, but he's guilt-tripping me for not doing video calls, sending photos, etc., and telling him he couldn't visit for Thanksgiving, even though I told him he could visit her for her first Christmas, and I offered to help him finance the trip. He decided to take his limited resources and leave days to vacation with his friends and family for 2 weeks in Flow and blamed me for not wanting to come until he gets a court order. He had previously stated he couldn't come because of money, place to stay. I don't know what to do. I don't trust him alone with the baby. Doing calls and sending pics feels so forced and is bad for me emotionally. I've tried it. I want to stop being snarky with him, but I'm still so mad, and the fact that he hasn't really apologized for everything he put me through has me on edge. There's so much more to the story, but I think this post has gone on long enough for now. Court was today for the paternity hearing. He tried to paint me as a complete whore, which is fine. The judge let the visitation orders stand as they are, even though apparently paternity has not been established in the court's mind. The reasoning was that we never lived together. You guys, I can't even begin to describe how horrible this man has been to me. The stuff he said in court was beyond all comprehension. I chose not to waste the court's time with a lengthy rebuttal of all the lies and half-truths he presented. We should have paternity results in a month. I guess I'm just kind of shocked how long the judge let him bloviate with utter nonsense that didn't even have anything to do with paternity. He said that his family was also waiting for paternity results. He's been giving all these guilt trips about his family not being able to see her, yet they have my contact information. This is the very first time I've heard anything about his family also questioning paternity. His mom and sisters were at my baby shower, which took place after I found out about his cheating. Jesus, I'm upset right now. If there was ever a person with two faces, this guy would be the poster child. I responded to almost.
You want to continue? Click on this video. You want to continue? Click on this video.